I was hired as the Northwest Regional Sales Manager for PowerBar. And that gave me a lot of experience in working with teams. And eventually what happened was Nestle USA purchased PowerBar. And the next thing I know, I've got a national position doing the same thing, but now from Miami to Seattle, from New York to San Diego. And so I was in that industry for, I think, 22, 23 years.
I got into a career as an electroencephalographic technologist and worked doing EEGs and nerve conduction studies for neurologists and for the hospital there. So I had a really good career. I remember my sister Susan sending me an article from the Honolulu Advertiser saying, the demographics show that a woman in Hawaii who's over 45 years old has a 0% chance of getting married.
When I was 49 years old, I always wanted to meet the woman that I would spend my life with.
I met Gary when I was 49, and I knew right away that he was the one. He was the one I wanted to marry.
6 months after we met, we were married in Hawaii. I was blessed to have a very well-paying position. I had Seahawks season tickets, and I went to Mariner games, and we went to Broadway shows, that came on tour to Seattle. We were not rich, but we had a good life. 6 months after purchasing a brand new home and a brand new car, I told Paula, on our vacation, can we go back to Thailand? And she had never been.
He had been there a few years before kayaking, and he wanted me to experience this amazing kayaking.
And so we were very excited. We got on a plane and we flew to Thailand for about 2 weeks, and with no expectation except fun. 2 weeks after coming home, Paula walked in my office, and she said to me, "You have been preoccupied since we've been home. Is it just jet lag? What is it?" And I heard myself say words that I had never thought before. And the voice that came out said, "I think God is saying we need to sell the house, sell the cars, quit our jobs, and move to Thailand to be missionaries." And the look came over Paula's face. And I thought, I'm in a heap of trouble. I'm going to now spend the next 10 minutes telling her I'm really sorry. I have no idea what happened there.
I was just stunned. And I remember saying, that's really incredibly amazing, because I feel the same way too.
And I thought, let's do it. So the next day, I called my boss. Halfway here, I realized that although we felt God had told us to go and be missionaries for His kingdom, He didn't explain what we're supposed to do.
We taught English at the Foursquare Church for about 18 months. We walked to school every day and taught at night, and then would walk home. And so many different experiences, motorcycles coming up on the sidewalk, zooming by you, the tiles all topsy-turvy, trying not to fall down.
We loved teaching English, but we had that sense that although it was good, it was not the thing. And Paula and I entered into a period, a small season for 6 months probably, of frustration. We're answering as much of the call as you've shared with us. Would you like to show me page 2, please? So we began to pray a completely different prayer from that point on. And every day we began to pray, we will do anything. Forget the resume. If it's not about my skill set, if it's not about our past, we'll do anything. Just show us. I met a man named Dale who came to Thailand and invited me to lunch. And he said, we've got a ministry that we have developed in several different nations. It's an evangelism ministry for children. And we're looking for somebody in Thailand who could lead this. And I said, well, great. If I ever meet a person like that, I'll be glad to introduce you to him. But just in case you're wondering, Dale, it ain't me.
And I kind of laughed. I said, that's so funny that they would come to you or me for children's ministry, because we don't have any kids, never taught Sunday school, never did one iota of work in children's ministry, know absolutely nothing about it. I said, that's really funny. They must really be desperate, A few months later, these guys came back again and told Gary, they said, we really just feel like you should at least pray about this and look at it, because we really believe this is something that might be really good for you.
I told my friend that I would go home and I would pray that God would find him the person that could best be able to do the ministry idea that he had in mind for Thailand. I went to bed. I woke up early in the morning. My first thought was, oh my God, it's me.
And I said, what? He said, this is what keeps coming to us and nothing else has been working and we don't know what to do. And so why not just investigate it and try it? And so I said, well, if you really want to, we can try it. But I didn't have any real hope for it at all. And one day, Gary came and he had his Bible and he said, look at this.
Psalm 78, verses 4-8, that in paraphrase says, bring the good news of the Lord to the youngest generation. Disciple them to be followers of Christ, and they will be raised to replace the current adult generation that is stubborn and resistant to the Word of God.
And I saw it. I said, oh my gosh, it is a strategy to reach the children and raise them up as a generation to follow Jesus, and that's how you can change a culture.
So we had this sense of direction and calling. We didn't have any experience. And yet, 1 Corinthians 1:27, the weak shall shame the strong, kept coming back to me. And I thought, okay, Lord, if this is your calling, we'll do it one step at a time. And that's how we entered into the whole process. The two of us started out to train churches, Thai churches, to do this. At that point, we spoke no Thai, and churches spoke virtually no English, and we had no experience. And in order for a church to accept us as a trainer for their church team, we pretended we knew an awful lot more than we really knew. We convinced a church that we were going to be key to helping them build children's ministry and growth. And the pastor and his wife invited us to train their team. So we trained their team for 4 days. I asked the church, where do you want to have your outreach? Expecting that perhaps in front of the church. And they said, no. We want to go to the Muslim village where there's no church and no history of Christianity.
I was a bit nervous and scared because it was in the South and they had bombs going off down there from terrorists.
And I turned to Paul and I said, we're going to die at our first outreach.
The day we got there, they had 28 bombs go off in that town.
And we had this first event 4 days after Paul and I first began to train the church. And 65 kids, Muslim kids, came to the Lord.
I had been working in Thailand for 2 years with adults. I'd never seen anything even remotely like that. Even one person deciding to follow Jesus was like a huge miracle that would be celebrated for months. And here, all of these children, every one of them.
And the church said, we're coming back every Saturday. And we'll teach you music, we'll teach you games, and we're going to teach you about Jesus more and more, how you can learn to follow him.
And then some adults started coming to church and wanted to follow Jesus too. So it became a church. And I remember Gary telling me on the flight home, he said, wow, could you imagine what this would be like if we knew what we were doing? So we decided, let's do it. Gary realized right at the beginning that we couldn't do it ourselves and that we needed Thai people to do it. We needed to have a Thai team, and that we needed to mobilize the Thai churches to reach the children in their own area.
A lot of the background in training teams and multiplying teams came into my mind. And I started to study how Jesus worked with his team. The first person we actually had on our team was Simon out of Bangkok.
I worked with the bank in the city. I graduated from the university, the law school. I have the law degree. So I went to work every day. And that time I had a question in myself, in my mind. What am I doing? Am I doing for who? Do I have the purpose in my life? And then when I met Gary and Paula, my vision started to running, make me get hotter and hotter in my spirit. So I realized and pray, and I answered to Gary and Paula, yes, I'm going to work with you. Yes, I'm going to go with you.
And he had actually a sense of calling. He wanted to participate in preaching and doing different things, but he had never really had much experience.
I had no background. I didn't go to the seminary, but I need to talk with the churches around Thailand.
So he began to train with Paula and myself, churches together as a threesome. And slowly we began to see the growth of confidence in Simon. We encouraged him, we loved on him, we prayed over him.
And I see the heart. They have the purpose in their life. Because not even what you get, but what you give is most important for God.
God had us in Thailand because he wants to transform this nation for Jesus. He wants to change the nation to follow Jesus.
When we came to Thailand in 2005, we had a perception perhaps based upon American Buddhism. We had not really been aware of the depth of the spiritual connection of Buddhism to the occult, or to the connection to multiple gods, or even to fortune telling and astrology and Hinduism and this black magic that is so prevalent within the label of what is considered Thai Buddhism. We have had a lot of episodes of Satan trying to enter into our lives to block what we believe is God's will. About 6 months after beginning this ministry, we had already seen nearly 1,000 children come to Christ. I became ill.
He was shaking, he was shivering. I said, we need to get you to the hospital. I took him downstairs and got in a taxi.
When we got into that taxi, I became sicker and sicker and sicker, rapidly sicker and sicker and sicker.
The doctor started to look at him, and Gary just collapsed on the ground. All these people came, they put him on a gurney, they were running down the hall, they ran him into the emergency room, and they started giving him fluids and all this stuff. He ended up staying in the hospital for a week, and they did all these tests. They couldn't figure out what it was.
They gave me every type of antibiotic they could dig up, with no effect at all.
We had only been doing Think Small ministry for a few months, and we had felt like, we finally got into what we're supposed to be doing, and now what's happening, my husband, I thought he was dying.
Paula, in the meantime, had sent out a newsletter to several hundred people who prayed for my recovery.
They called in an infectious disease specialist.
He came in and he said, son, I am going to make you my special project.
And he said he has a superbug that's resistant to antibiotics. That's why nothing's working.
And he went home at night and started concocting different types of previously really unheard of combinations of antibiotic. 2 days later, he came in and gave me one of his inventions, and within hours, I was recovered. 3 days later, I was training a church on how to do another gospel show. This was a spiritual battle that manifested into a physical battle. However, we have not been intimidated by that. We've recognized it. We realize Satan has no power when he enters into a battle with the Lord, unless we give it to him. So we refuse to do that. We don't like it. It makes it uncomfortable. Sometimes it can be even scary, but we remember whose we are. And so we have decided that we are going to win.
When we first started the ministry, we were mostly focused on evangelism and discipleship.
Our gospel show brings the message of the gospel to children in a way that children can receive.
They use clown skits, games, memory verses, drama, illusions. Each activity has a spiritual message, and it leads up to an invitation at the end of the show where the children can invite Jesus into their lives and repent of their sins and receive Jesus as their Lord and Savior.
Within all of these outreaches, we share the gospel. Children come to Christ, and that leads to a follow-up program we call Think Small Cinema. We're in the process of setting up for something we call Think Small Cinema. They got tickets for a movie, which is a gospel movie, and kids are going to really have a great time tonight. There's going to be games and fun and snacks and music. And they're in the process right now, their first night, actually entering discipleship for Christ. 90% of the children who come to Christ attend Think Small Cinema, and that's the beginning of discipleship. And that leads to a series of events that brings children into a Sunday school class in the morning. And we're seeing churches thrive because of it. As we began to develop this ministry, we began to understand the importance of having training teams that were fully salaried and fully focused on ministry rather than part-time volunteers. Because the vision was so big, it couldn't be a part-time volunteer thing to have that kind of impact. Our team's responsibility is to train local churches.
Our first team that we created was in Bangkok. We have Simon, Pham, and Nok.
They get to oversee the entire operation of Think Small Foundation, which is a big job, but they're also out there training churches how to reach kids and protect kids. Our second team that we created was in Eastern Thailand, the least evangelized area. There is only one person out of every 1,000 people who know Christ. Tom is the national training manager for Think Small. His wife, Samai, is the spiritual development leader, and Thum is one of the key administrators as well as trainers. They've been able to train churches and reach over 30,000 kids for Christ in that area in just a few years. An area where people said, don't go, you're wasting your time.
They go into villages, schools, government. They have favor everywhere they go. They're amazing. We are so excited about our team in a restricted nation. They are incredible. They'll go anywhere. They go on rafts, they go up in hills, they go into jungles. They go to reach people who are unreached.
Although the government has a law against any evangelism, we've been able to find a way to creatively bring the gospel through child protection into that nation.
After we trainings, the church leader about our Think Small program, we use the drug prevention program to do outreach, and also another is child protection. They invite all the children and adults, and youth come. Before they have only 50 or 60 children. Now they have 200 or 300 children attend the church. It's so amazing. And then village chef see it, the program. Oh, he accept Jesus Christ. It's so amazing. The villager, later, they become a Christian, the whole village. Yeah, praise the Lord.
Those three people, 3.5 years ago, began. Since that time, more than 25,000 kids have come to the Lord in a nation where evangelism is illegal outside of the church walls.
We have a great team in northern Thailand. Poom and Somchai and his wife Cream are our training team, and they have trained many churches. They do a lot of outreach to tribal communities. Somchai and Cream are from the Lahu tribe, and also into Thai churches, and they are reaching children all over the north. They go all around. They train in Bible colleges, in Bible schools, churches of all denominations, and children respond to them. They're fun, and we're so excited to have them. They're a great team. Our newest team in Thailand is Nacha and her husband, Pastor Dode. They are pastors of a church in Trong in southern Thailand. Most of the Muslims are in the south. Nacha, her family, she came from a partly Muslim background. They understand the situation there well, and they're really doing a great job. We're excited to see the transformation of that area of the country. As we went on, we saw that there were so many social problems here in Thailand that were causing harm to the children.
In Thailand, the issue with child exploitation is out of control. Prostitution, begging, labor. 30% of primary school children use methamphetamine. What hit me like a ton of bricks, no one is dealing with the prevention side to get ahead of the problem, and no one is talking to the church. I looked at the marketing element of my past, and I saw 5,000 churches in Thailand, 5,000 potential volunteer organizations who knew their community better than anybody, who had the relationships in their community, and were hungry to make a difference in their community. And nobody was training them nor mobilizing them, where parents and community leaders were frustrated and wanting to welcome help. The only thing left for us to do was to write our own materials, write our own workshops, write our own outreaches, and begin to train churches in these areas. And that has become child protection, prevention against drugs, trafficking, abuse. That has become an enormous focus on our ministry. One day, we were making a presentation to a school principal. And when we wrote drug prevention, the outreach, we wrote it as a secular program. Why? Because we had no idea that a school would allow anything but a secular program. From America, that doesn't happen. So in talking with the principal, he asked me, "Are you going to tell these students about Jesus?" And I said, "No, you don't have to worry about that. This is a secular program." And he looked at me and he said, "Well, why wouldn't you tell them about Jesus?" And I thought, this is confusing. Are you asking us to tell them about Jesus? And he said, "Yes." I said, "Are you a Christian?" He says, "No, I'm Buddhist." He said, "Look, the drug problem is so bad. Children need to have every ounce of power possible. And if you can offer that through Jesus, you go ahead and do it." I said, I'll be back in a week. And we went home and we wrote a Christian version. We thought maybe that would be the only school, but we started offering every school principal the option of a Christian version and a non-Christian version. And we go to all the Buddhist schools, and 70% of the principals are saying, please do the Christian version. And we have seen over 50,000 kids come to the Lord through drug prevention, gospel style.
The churches that our teams train, they form church teams. These churches are able to go anywhere in their area. These outreaches in schools, public schools, private schools, in slums, in villages, in parks, in malls. We've had these outreaches in anywhere where there's children.
5 years ago, we began slowly building this program. Today, over 70,000 kids have come to the Lord through different areas of child protection. We believe that the real opportunity here in Thailand, in America, and around the world is through the youngest generation. 85% of all Americans say they came to Christ before they were 15 years old. And yet statistically, roughly 3% of the energy and money is being put into reaching children for Christ.
There's other countries that want to do something similar, and we want to be a part of that as much as we can. We want to respond.
We now have a foundation, a legal foundation in the U.S. Countries like Sri Lanka, Nepal have contacted us. Mongolia has contacted us. We're in the process now of developing strategies for South America. We're in the process now of developing a strategy into a communist nation not too far away. There's a movement going on that's so far beyond anything Paul and I could dream of or even take responsibility for. But we're honored to be a part of that movement, and we're dedicated to serve it all the way through. We had no confidence in anything regarding children's ministry or what we were eventually called to do. And yet, he has used us and spun our lives 180 degrees. And because we took a step, he's rewarded us by allowing us to be a part of what he is doing.
When I think of the beginning, how inept we felt, how unqualified we felt, and then I look at now, it makes you want to proclaim the wonderful, marvelous works of the Lord, because that's the only way that this could have ever happened.
He sort of invited us to his party, and we decided to take the invitation. And because of that, so many children, so many churches are being blessed. And you know, I have to say, we have amazing teams with wonderful people, incredible pastors who are jumping on board. But that's not why the ministry is growing so quickly and so dramatically. It's growing because we have a biblical plan, a biblical strategy driven by a biblical vision and empowered by the Holy Spirit. God is doing it, and we just get to be a part of that.
And we know that this is the case with all believers. God sometimes calls us, we may not feel qualified, we may not know exactly what we're doing at the time, but if we just follow and we're faithful, we will find that God is more faithful.
My encouragement is take a step of yes. Let God do the rest.
So let's get going.